Grievance be noted. I call the member for Macmillan.
Deputy Speaker, I was invited to speak at the Borbor Community Conversation, along with representatives from the Gippsland Prevention of Men's Violence Against Women strategy. I began my address by saying this isn't the first time that I've walked this path in speaking on the issue of violence against women. In fact, I've spoken on it many times, publicly, and let me say privately, amongst my friends and colleagues. I spoke about, well, firstly I was surprised there were so many there. The theatrette was full. We had representatives from the police, from agencies dealing with the issue. Actually, the police were the Family Violence Unit based out of Morgan. And they did a panel discussion after I'd spoken. And I'm clearly a male, standing up, talking about violence against women and taking charge of my responsibilities, Deputy Speaker, in regard to what happens in my community of Gippsland and across Australia. And every time you go and you speak at something like that, you learn something. And whilst I knew it was the case, I didn't realise that it's the tiny little funny words, funny jokes about issues and women that grow into stronger words and become part of the culture, then part of the process. And then they become the broken eye socket, bashed nose, smashed teeth, torn muscles, wrecked work opportunities, embarrassment, shame. And I began my address on shame. Shame exhibited by the people, the females in this case, who happen to be the victim. Shame. They're ashamed of themselves. Some are ashamed of themselves because they're ashamed that they got themselves in that position in the first place. Others are ashamed of themselves because the way they end up looking, or because they're told by the perpetrator that it was their fault, and they believe it, and this veil of shame comes over them. Of course, I spoke differently at that function about shame than I'm talking to you about it now, because I had a bit of time to think about what I said before. And then the second thing I spoke about was respect. A complete and utter lack or absence of respect for the individual that you're bashing. That violence is a considered act. It's not something that just springs out of nowhere, because I think the males that I know do not resort to violence. I've been tempted plenty of times in my life, but not in regards to women. I've been angry, but that's not where my guilt lies. My guilt lies with every other male in Australia that at some point has remained silent. At some point of that sliding scale I talked about of sexism and racism and other remarks, has remained silent instead of pulling the person up and saying, not on my watch, not in my area, not in my football club, not in my family. We don't do that. We don't do it. Not in our community. That's not our way. my desire is that every man takes responsibility. And you've heard this has been used so many times until I found it in a different context. And it said, all that is needed for the force of evil to succeed is for enough good men to remain silent. I'm not talking about the perpetrators here. I'm talking about men that would never lay a hand on a woman. But what they would do is allow an inappropriate suggestion to pass. And a child will pick that up like that. This is the respect Dad has for Mum. This is the respect Joe has for his girlfriend. This is the respect my older brother has for the girls at school. He can speak about them in this manner. And so the disrespect flows in and grows. So I stand up there as a member for Macmillan and say about Gippsland, I want a cultural change across the whole of my electorate. Because on the numbers, there's a whole lot of men bashing their wives in my electorate right now. Right now, 18 minutes past 8. There's families being wrecked. There's children being completely distressed and will be a mess at school tomorrow. There's women who will not be able to go to work. And the numbers and figures that I've got here of the numbers of people, the cost to this nation of men bashing women, and the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours that they are unable to work. And all those rotten excuses. I've told the story in the past. I was employer of many women. And most of them were older women because they'd had school-age kids and then they came into our business whilst their kids were at school and stayed on. Most of my staff never left. One young girl, I've got to be careful telling the story probably in this context, but in fact I should withdraw from telling it, except to say that the older women knew what was going on and looked at me like I was a dill. Because my mindset couldn't concept what was happening not in my workplace, but around my workplace. Because I had no concept of family violence. It's just not part of our family. It's just not on. And my extended family is the same, I believe. But am I like every other male across Australia that believes that his extended family is not involved? Well, if they're not, somebody somewhere is. And it's not just tied into one community or one socio-economic level of our society. It's everywhere. And it's a disgrace. How do we call on the men of Australia to be men? Because men don't bash women. Strong men don't bash women. Men who are comfortable in their own skin don't bash women. Only weak men bash women. And it's a power play. It's a power play. It's all right to present the problem, but if men, and I don't even see myself in the good category, but I know good men, and I know that we're going to need the help of the good men in the footy club and the round ball soccer club and the rugby. We're going to need men in the cricket field. We're going to need men in Rotary and Lions and all the other organisations you can think of. But we're going to need men in their workplace, in their own workplace, when they hear the story, when the dirty magazine's put up on the back of the toilet wall, when the pictures are put up, that anything that demeans women, that drags them down, we've got a stamp on it then and there. Because it's not the little change, it's not the little dirty book in the corner, it's the totality of the climb to violence and respect. And we have come to a place in this nation where respect is not number one, and we need that change. Thank you, Deputy Speaker.